What is up, guys? Today we are reviewing the new Fuji XT4. Is this the best hybrid mirrorless camera? Also, did you notice that somebody was attached to this camera? It's Valentina Vee who's joining us today. We're not just alone here with the two of us. We have Nerida, model from Australia, so you don't have to look at Tway the whole time. So the XT4 has actually been out for a couple of months now, and it kind of upgraded a few little things from the XT3. Basically, it does have the same sensor inside of it, but it added IBIS, a flip screen, a better battery. Shall we get some testing?
Let's go.
Let's go. So we're gonna do a quick color test and dynamic range test here. We're shooting at the max everything, H.265, 10-bit, 4K, 420 internal. If we had an Atmos, we could do 422.
All intra.
And so we're just gonna see how this shot, which is extremely harsh, Tway, if you see it. Yeah, see how harsh the light is on the back there? We're gonna see how F-Log handles that. I personally really love Astia.
Astia is the portrait film stock. This is specifically made for portraits. They don't make Astia anymore film stock wise, so you cannot get it anymore.
But you can get it on the XT4.
That's right.
So we're gonna be testing the IBIS right now. Like she was saying, she hasn't had a ton of use with it, right?
No, I've mostly been either shooting at 240 frames per second, so you don't need stabilization, or it's been on sticks or on a slider. Okay, so 4K 2398, no IBIS.
No IBIS.
At 100.
And action.
Jump again. Do that again. Just keep doing that over and over again.
Nice.
That's a cut.
Now, V is doing this for our testing purposes, but you mentioned a trick that you like to do with mirrorless cameras. Can you show them real quick?
Yes, I will actually use the EVF, the electronic viewfinder. Not only do you look like you're a tourist, but also...
A tourist with a $4,000 lens.
But also, there's more points of contact, so it's a little bit easier.
So you got 1, 2, 3, much more stable. If you don't have IBIS and you're using like an XT3, which she did on the documentary, that's the way to go.
That's the way to go.
So now we're gonna turn on the IBIS or the IS mode. There's 2 modes inside of that. You get a digital stabilization, and we'll do that as well. It punches in a little bit. This is just pure IBIS where the sensor is kind of bloop, 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 moving inside of it.
Wow, this is great, Dave.
Is that?
Yeah, I can already tell.
So you've only been filming for like 2 seconds. Do you notice it?
This is actually great, Dave. I can already tell. Wow. Okay, I'm gonna go into 135, you know?
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm like really curious.
We're zooming into 135. Keep on going. Keep on jumping in that tortoise shell.
Oh my God.
Looks
Whoa.
good. So she's at 135, which is about 200 mil on a full frame. And you feel like it's pretty lock solid.
And this is not with lens, this is with just body, not lens.
And this is with no of the other features. All right, and cut. Okay, so now she's turned on the digital stabilization, which actually crops in on the image. Let's try the same shot again, now with digital, in addition to IBIS. So as you're operating, do you notice any difference with digital?
I don't actually.
Okay.
But maybe it's because
there's not a lot of movement happening.
I think because the difference between no IBIS and IBIS was so huge.
Yeah.
That with the digital, it's like, okay, fine, but...
It's like when we went from SD televisions to HD, it was like such a massive jump.
Right.
And then when 1080 to 4K happened, it was kind of like, I guess I see the difference. If digital IS and IBIS isn't enough, we also have IS boost mode. Did you even know about this?
I didn't.
So
is that in a different, oh, boost,
right
there
below
it
it.
is.
So
okay.
once you turn on the boost setting, It's really designed to emulate like literally a tripod.
Okay, let's try it.
So let's try it.
Rolling.
Rolling and action. Do you notice any difference? I mean, you're not really doing a ton of movement, so.
I'm trying to keep it as steady as possible, but if I don't move at all, it looks pretty good.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah.
What I'm noticing is
right
there are jumps, so it's more like it's less steady. So if I try to move, it holds for a second and then it jumps.
So the strength of this boost mode is really if you were just to be a human tripod and just stand there. When you're doing movement, you want to turn that mode off because it's going to have the jumpy effect.
I prefer without.
And cut. I also did a vlog test, and we'll cut to that now. This is just IBIS. So as you can see in the corners, there's a lot of wobble going on with the IBIS, and I think that's one thing that a lot of people have noticed with the XT4 is that the IBIS control is a little wobbly and weird. So be on the lookout. In this test, I'm running through all the IBIS modes again at this one static shot. This is with no IBIS, or kind of what an XT3 would look like. In this test, you can really see how the IBIS kicks in here and helps tremendously. However, once you start dealing with the digital IS and the boost IS, there's a bit of a crop involved here. You can also see some weird jitter off and on in the boost mode. I do find that the standard IBIS mode seems to perform the best in terms of stabilization, but be on the lookout for that wobble. The XT4 has phase detect autofocus on the sensor, so it's really good at autofocus. The XT3 was also very good as well, but now we've got the flip screen, making it a great camera for YouTubers and content creators. And now, a wildly entertaining word from our sponsor. I'm going to tell a story using only my brain. Once upon a time, there was a fox. The fox's name was Teddy Bear the fox. Now Teddy Bear the fox was raised in a supermarket by a pack of elves. Now Teddy felt a little outside of the elf colony, so he decided to go explore and go visit the pyramids in ancient Egypt, where he found out snakes on a plane equal explosions. Every single thing that you just saw was brought to you by storyblocks.com/. If you want to show your support for Indie Mogul, then make sure to click that first link down below. Storyblocks is the place that we go to fill in those B-roll holes. Everybody's got those B-holes, if you know what I mean. Storyblocks provides stock footage, After Effects templates, all for one convenient subscription price. Yeah. Thank you Storyblocks for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back to that Fuji XT4 video. This video is actually being shot on the Sony A7C. Subscribe if you want to see that one. So we just finished the IBIS test. Pretty impressive stuff, really.
Yeah.
You want to do frame rates?
Let's go.
I do think one of the reasons why you would pick up the XT3 or the XT4 is the frame rate options. The XT4 added the ability to do 240 frames per second. This is 24 frames per second. This is 4K 60, which everybody loves. 1080p at 120 frames per second. Then here's the brand new 240 frames per second from the XT4.
Great.
Nice.
Okay, that's a cut.
Beautiful.
And it's so like pregnant.
And again, 4K 24 at 10-bit, 4K 60 10-bit. If you had an Atomos, you could do 10-bit 422 at 4K 60. And then again, the 240 frames per second mode in 1080p. So we just noticed something as we're doing our slow-mo test. It seemed as though she got a little closer to the lens all of a sudden.
So when you turn on the high frame rate recording, it's going to crop into 1.29x. Remember, that's already on an APS-C sensor.
So yeah, that's a 1.89 crop total.
Did you just do that math?
Uh-huh.
The man knows math.
Math is a really cool thing.
We're looking at it here on the back of the screen. I can't really tell a difference between the two, but the 240 mode is lower res than the 120 a little bit, right?
I would call it like scrambled eggs vibe, where the edges are just a little bit, they're not feathered, they're just it's weird. It's
just mushy because the data rate and all these types of things are being stretched and pulled. If you want better slow-mo, I would recommend sticking to 1080p at 120 frames per second. That looks really crispy and good. 240 is nice though, because it's just a unique frame rate to have in your arsenal if you need it.
If you need it.
And now on to the infamous ISO tests. This is the native ISO at 640, ISO 800, ISO 1000, ISO 1250, and it's already getting noisy at 1600. But they got a little trick up their sleeves here with Fuji, because this camera is dual native ISO. Look at this. Look at the difference between the ISO 2000 and ISO 1600. You can see clearly that ISO 2000 is actually performing better than ISO 1600. This is not something that they're marketing, and for some reason I haven't really heard much about it, but the XT4 is a dual native ISO sensor. As we ramp up even higher here to 6400, you can start to see the noise getting, pretty bad. But the fact that it is dual native helps tremendously. ISO 10,000, I stopped it down for the exposure. And ISO 12,800, this is the maximum. You're not going to want to go here. It's pretty messy, pretty noisy. The XT4, for like all intents and purposes, is a great camera. But my biggest question, I think a lot of your questions are going to be, is it worth buying over the XT3? Because this just dropped in price to $999, making it way more affordable than this one, $700 cheaper. That's a whole price of 1 or 2 lenses, potentially.
Yeah, obviously APS-C cameras are not going to give you the same kind of features as full frame or 35mm, just because it's an APS-C sensor. If you're working on a tripod in a studio mostly with lighting that is set, or if you have a stabilizer, which are now really, really cheap, I don't necessarily think that you need that XT4. I've shot so much on the XT3, 2 seasons of an entire documentary. I've shot music videos, I've shot product videos. It is a great camera and great price.
And they both have the same sensor. They both do 10-bit. They can go into an Atomos and give you ProRes if you want it. They're both just super powerful tools, and there's no denying that these can be used in a professional environment. I mean, she just listed a bunch of stuff that she used it on. So these lenses, I want to just say, sidebar, are amazing. Holy crap. I've never used these. I've seen them at trade shows and stuff. This is the first time actually using these. How do you like using these lenses?
They're amazing. They're so great. The 2 lenses cover everything from 18 to 135, which is like a 35 to 200 if we're going equivalents. They can both be macro lenses. So they both have a macro slider on the back. You can turn them into macro lenses. They're parfocal, which means that throughout the zoom range, they keep the same focus. So great for documentaries especially. Just wonderful, super sharp, super beautiful. Can't recommend them enough.
And they come in a variety of lens mounts as well. So if you're watching this and you're like, dang, I really like that lens, but I don't want to shoot on a Fuji, they come in a Sony E-mount, so you can put on a Sony crop like the FS7. They're very popular on the FS line. Duclos is doing an RF version as well, which means you could put it on like the R5 and watch it overheat real quick. So you can use these lenses on a variety of cameras. Even in a world where the A7S III exists, there's no denying that these cameras are amazing. And one aspect that we did not even mention, these are amazing photo cameras, duh. The film simulation modes on these look beautiful, straight out of camera. If you guys loved seeing Valentina, which I know you did, comment down below. Maybe we'll have her on again.
I would love to come back and talk about more nerdy things.
Once again, I'm Dave Maze. This is Valentina Vee. This is Indy Mogul, and we'll see you next time. V, should you buy the XT4 or save a couple of coins and buy the A7S III?
Well, I did purchase the A7S III
yeah.
with my own money.
We'll have to follow up then with that one.